Hey everybody, investigative pop culture journalist Popcorn Farts coming at you once again relatively live from my home away from home, none other than AMC Movie Theaters, where I'm about to watch and review Matt Walsh's new documentary film Am I Racist, where he comedically tackles all the DEI programs spread across America. Will this film be a massive win and step into right-wing spaces in Hollywood, or will the right wing be forced back into their spidery dark cubbyholes of Daily Wire Plus? Follow me on this journey now.
Many hours later.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Just got out of Am I Racist? Pretty packed theater, too. The reason I bring that up is because, as everyone pretty much knows and is willing to admit, Hollywood has been typically left-leaning for several decades now. Which, as someone who kind of has a bleeding heart, I've always been cool with. Now, as most of the movie-going public knows, that the quality has oftentimes dipped in favor of the message over the last several years. A big reason for that, a lot of people point to, is the inclusion of DEI programs. Now, this movie tried to tackle that quite a bit throughout the course of 2 hours, and I'm here to say I'm open to the idea of it, and I'll tell you why. Full disclosure: I am an AMC investor. I want people going to the theaters. I'm a big believer in the marketplace of ideas, so I don't want just left-leaning people going to the movies. I want to see right-wing leaning people going to the movies as well. So this movie is going to attempt to accomplish that in its release. There's been quite a few rumblings in the press lately about conservative organizations trying to get into that space with their own production studios, Daily Wire being the biggest one, and this was their attempt. Now, for those of you who don't know, DEI stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, which is a program that a lot of corporations throughout America, and really the world, have started incorporating into their day-to-day business practices. Very similar to sexual harassment seminars, things along that nature, where they pay an exorbitant fee, which we learn throughout the course of this movie, to so-called DEI experts, people who have legitimate certification in DEI exercises, where they come and they speak to a group of typically predominantly white people. I think those are the only people that are really allowed in the group to talk about race, to teach racism to. And much like my feeling going into this movie beforehand about DEI, first off, let me clarify. The idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion on their own merits is not a bad thing. I'm all for even a program in place that helps people kind of keep their eye on the ball in terms of progress. As an old school lib, I'm all for that idea. However, and this is a big but, in today's climate, and especially in capitalistic society, most ideas rooted in good causes and well-meaning often get relegated and de-evolve into just a money-hungry cash grab and hustling, which is basically what this movie set out to prove DEI programs were. Matt Walsh finds out relatively quick how easy it is to become a DEI instructor. I think he only paid like $30 for his license, but he gets his DEI license and sets out throughout the movie just talking to other DEI instructors and people certified in the field. At one point, he talks to he impersonates a waiter so he can get into this group of all women, and they're just running down white guys. I mean, they're just shitting on us, folks. And to the point where Matt Walsh is hilariously interjecting at certain points, but not arguing. He's not saying anything that's like contradictory to what they're saying. He regurgitates DEI talking points, and he does this throughout the entire movie. Some people say that the best way to win an argument is to just showcase the other person's viewpoints, and Matt Walsh, I thought, did a really good job of that throughout this movie. Say what you want about Matt Walsh, there is a certain charm to his no-nonsense approach to things, and a lot of it was very comical. Now, going into this movie, one of the criticisms for a lot of online movie critics themselves are that they are shills for the messaging. Because as we've seen throughout the last few years, especially, it seems like the message of the movie is more important than the actual substance of the movie itself. Whereas a lot of times the activist message overtakes the actual creative process of the movie. But I'm not entirely certain how accurate that criticism is. If you want my honest take, I'm more inclined to believe that these are all just AMC shills, if anything else. People that bought AMC at the very top and are all praying to God that people are returning to the movie theaters. That's why every single time a movie comes out, something like The Marvels, someone like Grace Randolph will be like, "This is fantastic! Get your ass to the theater!" A lot of times, these online movie critics get accused of being left wing shills or apologists for Disney's woke propaganda machine. Some of you are probably thinking, but popcorn farts, that math doesn't math at all. If you're an AMC investor with financial stakes in the game, why wouldn't you be supporting every movie that comes out? I can't do it, damn it. My finances be damned. I am a film lover and movie buff first. In fact, one of the reasons I got into investing AMC to begin with, besides the undeniable reason of greed and the gold rushes of short squeezes at the time, was because I genuinely believe in movie theaters. There's just something about going to the theaters that beats sitting on your couch and streaming it on Max. The experience of going with family or friends, it's a fun event. Even if you're just a weirdo like me that likes to go get a big old bucket of popcorn, a pop, some salty pretzel bites, and just be transported for a couple hours. It's the perfect escape. So when I go to see a movie, I like to know that I'm spending what I consider to be top dollar on some good quality entertainment. So that brings us into my review today of Am I Racist? This image went viral a few years back because it depicted what seemingly shows a racist Sesame Street character blatantly ignoring two African American children. Now, when this made headlines a couple of years ago, the media was in a tizzy, a racist tizzy. There were people like Whoopi Goldberg and the ladies of The View calling for sensitivity training for this one Sesame Street character. And firing, of course, you gotta fire him. And as Matt Walsh points out in the documentary, we're not even really sure of the race or ethnicity of the person behind the costume. We never did find that out. For all we know, this could have been an old black man. Nobody knows. He could even been hard of eyesight or possibly blind. But what we do know is that the mom of these children agreed to sit down for an interview at the cost of $50,000. Let that sink in. $50K to sit down with Matt Walsh, who she had no idea was actually Matt Walsh, but that's kind of the point of the movie. Matt Walsh impersonates a liberal, progressive DEI advocate and is able to sit down for a hefty sum of money with a lot of these DEI experts. And the result is oftentimes the same. These folks start just spewing racist, nonsensical talking points about how it ultimately always comes down to how white people are evil. And that's a running theme throughout this movie when he's talking with these folks, is that nothing you do matters. If your kid watches Disney and prefers Cinderella to Moana, that's problematic because if she's a white girl, she's oftentimes going towards her own race. However, and Matt Walsh comedically calls this the Moana problem. If your daughter is white and she likes Moana, at what point does that become cultural appropriation if she wants to dress up as her for Halloween? It's a constant back and forth game that oftentimes gets played for very hefty sums of money. But if you thought Matt Walsh was just doing interviews with woke DEI specialists, shame on you, because he also did man on the street segments with a lot of normal people that really don't give a shit about DEI or politics, or especially race politics. One of the interviews he sat down with was quite touching with this old, I believe he was an immigrant. He had a bit of an accent, but he was talking to him. And at one point, the old man said that the only book he reads is the Bible. And in the theater, that got an audible awe from people. So the audience to this movie, definitely not in the racist camp. They were pretty openly affectionate towards this one older guy, which was kind of a touching moment. Although, you'll never be able to convince me that those bikers in that rough and tumble biker bar weren't dropping heavy N-bombs the second people weren't around. Now, throughout the course of this documentary, Robin DiAngelo is mentioned a lot. And for those of you that aren't familiar with her, she is the author of White Fragility, a book that pretty much lectures white people on how to just accept the fact that they're racist pieces of shit. It's my take on it. Again, some liberal folks, more progressive than me even, would probably argue that, no, that's a good thing, because we are evil pieces of shit, and we should be lectured about our racism constantly. Now, she's mentioned throughout this movie a lot, and much to my surprise, she actually does make an appearance. Matt Walsh gets her to sit down for an interview for a hefty sum of $15,000. There's that. Matt Walsh does a really good job because every single person he meets with charges him to speak with him. And it's not like they're going into it thinking that this is like Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire. They're going into it thinking that this is an ally. But they all charge the same. Like, at some point, it becomes painfully obvious that if you actually do believe in DEI programs, that this has really just been summed up and de-evolved into a total race hustle and a scam. But he actually does get her to sit down for $15,000, which is so much less than the one lady charged. The one lady charged $50K to sit down and basically just lecture him and tell him about how racist America is. Robin DiAngelo, to her credit, only charged $15. And at one point, Matt Walsh brings in one of the producers of the film, who is an African-American gentleman, one of Matt Walsh's only 17 black friends, as he states in the movie. 15, depending on what you consider to be black. But he brings in one of them to sit down and funnily enough, gives him money out of his own pocket as reparations. And she tries to chime in saying, this is weird. It doesn't feel comfortable. And she's like, are you feeling comfortable with this? And the guy says, hey, I'm always cool with getting cash. And she actually at one point, through some coaxing and white guilt, goes into her purse and gives him $30, which brought the total down from 1,500 to, or 15K, I should say. Excuse the hell out of me. She would never charge that low amount. She's a top-notch A-class race hustler, that one. No, it brings the total down from 15K to like 1475, something like that. But it's a pretty funny moment in the movie. I know that she's been pretty pissed about her representation in it, and she's gone on multiple outlets kind of going on the defensive of this movie, saying, yes, I was in it, I was tricked, da-da-da-da-da. But it's a pretty funny scene regardless. My final review of the movie, my final consensus is I think this is going to be... I don't know how much they spent on it. I'm guessing just based on how much they paid the DEI people that this movie probably cost close to, it had to be at least $100,000 to make it. Just in how much they were spending to talk to DEI folks. I mean, they were just dropping bags after bags of cash at these people. But I have to imagine that this movie will be fairly successful. Now, when I went to the theaters to see it, the theater was fairly packed. I mean, there was a pretty sizable audience for this. And like I said at the beginning, I'm all for it, man. I don't necessarily agree with Matt Walsh's politics or the politics of the Daily Wire. You know, I think gay people should be allowed to get married. I'm definitely for calling out racism. I think programs in movies and corporations to make sure that minorities aren't getting left behind is a great idea. It's a great principle. But just like everything else in this capitalistic society, it becomes corrupted and eventually a hustle. Just like everything, name it. But ultimately, as a moviegoer, I enjoyed it. I found Matt Walsh oftentimes charming, which is weird. Maybe him impersonating a liberal did it for me, but I was like, this guy isn't so bad. It was very funny, and I would recommend it. Now, if you're ideologically left and you're married to that camp, I don't know how much you're going to enjoy it, man. I guess the equivalent would be like trying to take my super Christian friend to go see Religulous. I don't know how much he's going to enjoy it. And if you're baked solid into that DEI cake, I can't see you seeing this movie as anything but an offensive slap to the face. However, it be what it be, you guys. The facts are the facts. They are charging exorbitant amounts of money to talk to these people. And if they really believe in the cause, maybe lower the price tag just a little bit. $15,000 to sit and educate somebody on race relations, is that important if you have to charge $15K? or in the one case, $50K. I still can't believe that, but if you're a movie-going person and you love going to the theaters and you don't have a problem with documentaries, especially comedic ones, I recommend this movie, man. It's a good time. To sum it all up, my final review, 2 pops, no farts.